Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tipper's Den. My name is Whitney, and today I have my November wrap up. November was a month. I did not get a lot of reading in. I had taken it pretty easy in October. I took it even easier in November. I was hosting Thanksgiving, and I'm never a spring cleaner. I'm more of an autumn cleaner. To me, I'm like, I want to get the house ready for when I'm going to be in it, not when I'm going to be out and about and I don't care about it. And I was hosting, and I'm vitamin D deficient. And I've been on vitamin D for years and years, like a supplement, vitamin D3 for years and years and years. And I've always still been borderline, and the doctor's just been kind of like, whatever. Well, I saw a video, and I don't condone going to the internet, but I did see a video by a doctor about vitamin D3 deficiency, and he was saying you could take 10,000 to 20,000 units a day, so I decided to double my dose and just see. I've had so much energy. The difference is amazing. I've taken care of boxes that have been sitting since we moved in almost 7 years ago now. So they've just been sitting there. I've worked my way through them, got the house all cleaned, all ready to go. And I still have so much energy, so I'm really glad I gave it a try. Because like my lack of energy beforehand, like I was blaming it on other things, but and those definitely played a factor, I'm sure, but like night and day. And so anyway, so I've been cleaning the house and then getting prepared for Thanksgiving, and I didn't do a whole lot of reading, which is a shame because as I was putting the books, like organizing them, there were so many that I was so excited to get to. I'm going to start fresh in the new year. So there's only 2 that are rolling over. The rest are just going back on the shelves, and hopefully there's some I definitely am going to prioritize in the new year and such, but we'll just have to see how that goes. Let's go ahead and talk about stats. So I did read 6 books. I originally had 14 prompts, 6 rollovers, and then 6 extra books that I got added on. And some of those extra books did get read. So anyway, page count was 1,840, which is really, really low for me. But normally on a lower month, I'm still, hitting 3,000. But that's okay. 5 were physical, 1 was digital, and then I did not have any audiobooks, which, thinking about it, if I had read some audiobooks, I probably could have upped my count because I could have listened to those while I was cleaning and doing stuff, but I just wasn't in the mood for audiobooks, I guess. Fiction, 4 were fiction, 2 were nonfiction, 1, yes, but it does have like a little bit of like magical realism, I would say. But it's also Native American like lore, and so it is technically nonfiction. I had 0 rereads this month. My top moods were all tied, obviously, with only 6 books. I figured that would happen, and they were reflective, mysterious, emotional, and adventurous. And then genres, again, these overlap. I had 3 thriller, 2 children's, 2 mystery, 2 horror, 1 sports, 1 short stories, 1 science fiction, 1 memoir, 1 historical, and 1 crime. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you're new here, I always start with the books I didn't get to, books that I partially got to are rolling over, things like that. And then I work my way from the bottom up to my favorite. I also have a top 3 that does not necessarily correspond to star ratings. So let's go ahead and get to this pile. So I was participating in Autism Reads, which is put on by Christine at An Autistic Reader. Their channel will be linked down below. And then I was also trying to do the buzzword this year, and that's put on by Kayla at Books and Lala. And I did pretty good until these last few months. So there's 3 months I'm not getting to at all. Christmas, December, it's holiday words. I'm definitely reading books with holiday words. So that one I will technically fulfill. But the other 3 I'm just going to scrap, which is a shame. 2 of them have been rollovers. First I had Like a River Glorious by Ray Carson. This one is a high priority. I loved the first book so much. Like, I absolutely loved it. And then I was watching Somber Honey Reads. Again, channel will be linked down below, and she just read the third book in the series, and she loved all 3 books, and so it's like, it just reminded me I need to continue the series because I absolutely love it. Like was the buzzword. I think I already pulled it down. I think it was for August buzzword. It had to have the word like in the title, but again, didn't get to it. This is going to be scrapped, but it is a high priority for 2025, so we'll see if I can get to it then. The other one that I did not get to, which I think this was from September, I want to say. Well, that was November. This might have been October. No, I think I got September's read. So this was October's, and it was Relationship Words, and that's The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. This one is not a high priority, so it's just going to go back on the shelf, and we'll see when I actually end up getting to it. And then for Autism Reads, I do have another buzzword, but it was actually on November's TBR, so we'll talk about that later. And then for Autism Reads, I think I'm behind from August, I want to say. So yeah. And these are just going to go on the shelf. I definitely want to get to them. So Autism Reads are, this past year was books that were written by people who were confirmed to be autistic. So for August, we had A Prayer for Vengeance by Leanne Schwartz. Didn't get to it, obviously. None of these I got to. I don't know why I keep repeating myself. But yeah, that one, all these I would really like to get to next year. But of course, Christine is doing it again next year. So we'll just have to see. September was A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. So again, that one we'll see. That's a middle grade, so it should be easy to read. This one I was really, really interested in, and that's The Outside by Ada Hoffman. And so this one definitely will be probably a higher priority to pick up early in 2025. And then the pick for November was Something More by Jackie Kalile. I want to say is how you pronounce that last name. I'm not entirely sure. And this was a young adult. She was doing adult, young adult, and middle grade, like rotating them. And then December was Moojag. I don't remember who it was by. I'll insert a picture. I didn't even buy it because I'm so far behind. And December, I have so many reads in December, like I just don't see myself getting to that one. And that one was a newer release, so it was a little bit more expensive as well. So I decided, since I'm so far behind, I'm just not even going to worry about that one. And so yeah, all those will be put on the shelf for next year, but those I would really, really like to read and find new autistic authors that I'm really interested in reading more by. Most of the books have been big hits this past year, and the year before I fell off at the end of the year too and didn't get things read at the end of the year. The end of the year just tends to be a little bit more busy, and I'm doing other things and such. I'm not reading as much, so we'll see what happens with those books next year. Now we are into the books from my actual game TBR. So all the honey jar prompts will go back into the honey jar since I did not fulfill them. They're all going back into the honey jar, so keep that in mind. And so the first one was for Elsa and Anna, and it was Insidious Takeover. And this one I was going to read the second book in the Prison Healer series, and that was The Gilded Cage by Lynette. Noni, obviously, didn't get to it. And this one, I think I put it on TBRs before, so it's definitely been a TBR fail, and it's one I really enjoyed, The Prison Healer, especially the ending. And so I'm really, really interested in this one, but for whatever reason, I'm just not pulled to it either. So that's a shame. But again, I would like to work on some series, so that's going to probably be a higher priority next year. This next one, I'm so sad I didn't get to. And so this was for Hercules, and it was No Damsel in Distress for Meg, of course, because she's no damsel in distress. And for that one, I went with Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. Selena is definitely not a damsel in distress. She takes care of business herself. Again, I've really been enjoying, like, I've only read 2 books, the first one and then the little prequel novellas collection, but I love this world. I love this character, and so I'm really, really sad I did not get to that one. Then we have another series continuation, which I am interested in continuing. Didn't like love the first one, and this one was for Bookworm. It was Book Talk pick. I don't remember the Book Talk that I got it from. I will leave it linked down below though. And this is was going to be Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second in the Red Rising trilogy. That one is probably a little bit lower priority, but I would like to continue that series. Next, we had Aladdin, and this was Genie or Jinn. And for this one, I had the Akhenaten Adventure. It's the Children of the Lamp series by P.B. Kerr, I want to say. Yeah, P.B. Kerr. And so, yeah, I've had this one for a while. I found it at a thrift store, and it worked for the prompt, but not one I'm super interested in. So again, we'll just go back on my shelves. This one, I was going to be doing a themed vlog, but again, I just wasn't reading. I did start the theme vlog and I just didn't get things read. So, and that was Rabbit, Not My Garden, which is, in reference to his garden always getting destroyed. And I kind of went with more of a sad one, and that was going to be Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown, because it's, about colonization and, everybody coming in and just destroying the Native Americans. So that one I would like to read at some point, but again, not a super high priority. This next one was for Little Red Riding Hood, which was a red cover. And that was going to be The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I've been interested in this one for a while, even though it's not typically my type of book. And so I'm kind of sad I didn't get to this because I don't know when I'll be prompted to pick it up. Maybe I'll get that prompt again and can work this for that. But most likely this is probably going to sit on my shelves for a while since it's not typically my type of book. It's kind of out of my comfort zone. Then we had The Little Mermaid, which was a paternal main character for kind of King Triton there. And I was going to go with Barbarian's Heart by Ruby Dixon. This is book 9 in the Ice Planet Barbarians. And this one, they already have a Kit, which is their child. And basically, he has amnesia, and so he doesn't remember his wife and child. But I didn't get to it, so. But those books are super easy. I've been working my way through them pretty steadily, so I'm not that concerned about that one. Then we also had Pinocchio, which was a translated work. And for that one, I was going to read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And yeah, this one's back on the shelf. So then we had our other buzzword, which was going to be the buzzword for the month of November, which needed to have the word only in it. This one also worked for Tigger, which was Out of Comfort Zone. And that was The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. This one, again, not typically the type of book I read, and so who knows when I'll actually get to it, but I'm definitely going to hold on to it to read at some point. And then the last one that was part of my game that I didn't get to was a bookworm, and it was Loved One picked, and my husband had chosen The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell, which is a sci-fi novel, which I didn't know when I found this at the thrift store. And so, yeah, that one's probably going to sit on the shelves for a while as well because it's not a high priority. Then, like I said, I was going to do a themed vlog, which was all about like Native American literature, authors and such. And so one of the books I did not get to, which would have been a reread for me, was The Death of Sitting Bear, New and Selected Poems by N. Scott Momaday. Like I said, this would have been a reread. I marked the poems I really enjoyed the first time I read it. And so, yeah, I'm not that disappointed because I have already read it. Poetry is not a big thing for me, but I was looking forward to rereading it this year. So maybe next year for the month of November. And then the other one, which has been on my shelf for a while, which I am really interested in, is The Painted Drum by Louise Erdrich. And so, yeah, that was another one for that themed vlog because she's a Native American author. So, those two will go back on the shelves. And then my genre-a-thon for this month was to read, Native American literature or indigenous book. And for that one, I was rereading Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I made it just over halfway through. I am annotating. I'm not doing like tabs for this first annotation, but I have been highlighting parts that I really like. And so I will be continuing this on through December and maybe even into January. This one I really am taking my time with. It's really about gratitude for what the earth offers us and reciprocity and such. And so I'm really taking my time. It definitely leaves me feeling, like a sense of peace, I guess, when I read this. So I don't want to rush it or anything. And like I said, I am annotating it, which is my first book I've ever annotated. And so, yeah, I'm going to be continuing on with this one. Then the other one that's a rollover, this was for the game as well. And it was Tigger T-I-double-G-R, ABC author, which is just a random ABC, a random letter, but for the author, and I got H for this. And I was doing my ABC title challenge, and so this book was on that challenge, and that's Zach's Law by Kay Hooper, so you have the H there. I did start this. I only read about 80 pages, 82 pages, and so I'm gonna continue this. I'm trying to squeeze it in around my December reads because I do 24 days of Bookmas in December, so I'm opening and reading a book each day. And obviously, those books take priority, but I'm going to try to sneak this one in. It's been a quick read so far, but we'll just have to see how it goes. This prompt, it will be fulfilled, but this one always goes back in because I like having the random letter prompts in there. And there were to the books that I did read. I did not have any DNFs, which for my purposes, DNFs are 1 star, so I didn't have any 1 stars. I did have 1 2-star, and that is XO by Jeffery Deaver. This is a Catherine Dance novel, so it's the 3rd in that series, which is fine. I think I missed a little bit because it references like her romantic relationships, and obviously I didn't have that reference, like I didn't know those characters, which they were probably introduced in the first 2 books. And yeah, I just didn't love this. So basically you have this country singer, and she has a stalker, and then people are starting to die. And Catherine Dance is very skilled at interrogation and kinesics, which is body language reading, essentially. And she's friends with the singer, Kaylee. And so she's down there just to see the concert, have a little vacation. But then, there's a stalker and people are dying. And so she ends up kind of trying to help the local police, which they don't love. And then she ends up actually officially on the case. And yeah, I didn't love it. There was this weird political plot thing that really didn't need to be in the book at all. And that whole kind of situation was just like, why? And like the twist, it just went on too long. So it's like, oh, it's this person. Wait, no. Oh, it's this person. Wait, no. And it just kept going on and on. And they had like the twist, like, yeah, it had something to do with what was going on, but it was just like, I don't know. I didn't love it. I kind of guessed the one twist as well. And it just wasn't very satisfying. The whole romantic plot point in here, which just kind of annoying because it's kind of a love triangle. And again, maybe I would have enjoyed that more if I was familiar with the characters, but I don't think I would have, honestly, even if I read the first two books, because it just kind of, it wasn't well placed within the book. Like, it was just kind of these random points where she'd start thinking about that. Oh, do I, stay with him? Or now that my other love interest is free, do I go with him? Like, it was just kind of annoying. And I didn't like how the character was handling that either, which was rough. And then the way it was written, you didn't get a lot of like emotion. It was very much like somebody watching from the outside and then telling somebody else it. Like, yes, it's in third person, but you can still get emotion in the character's thoughts and such. And so I didn't love that either. It was really just the writing style. It was easy to read. Like, it wasn't a difficult read by any means. It just, I didn't feel any connection to the characters. I was kind of annoyed by certain things. And so, yeah. And then also very like, not really info dumping a little bit, but also more like he's mansplaining to you certain things about like the country music and the body language reading and interrogation and such, like very like mansplaining feel to it. And then also like I don't mind, pop culture references definitely get under my skin, but like in a book like this where it's country music and so the pop culture references, like, you're familiar with some of those names and it makes sense for it to be in this book. I don't mind that so much, but like the whole Taylor Swift incidents with Kanye when he came up on stage and interrupted her, that was put in here and that happened to this country star. And then there was something else that was kind of like big that was put in here as well. And I'm like, why? Like, unnecessary. I did not like that. And then some of the pop culture references, it was like, come on. But yeah, it wasn't hard to read. I just didn't love it. So that was my X title. And then let's see here. We had 2 3-stars. The first one I was originally going to do a Winnie the Pooh honey round, which is a bingo game based on Winnie the Pooh. And I started that, so I ended up reading 2 books for that, and the second book just took way too long. And so I ended up not doing that video at all or anything. But I did start it, and so my first prompt I got was to read an ebook or an audiobook, and I decided to go the ebook route, and so I read A Light Through the Cracks, A Climber Story by Beth Rodden. I don't have it, so I'll insert it here. And that one, so it's her memoir, and she's a climber, obviously, and they go to this other country, and they end up getting kidnapped. And it was like right before 9/11, and so the country they went to, I forget which one specifically, but it's in that area, So they end up getting kidnapped by like this militia group. And so it's her kind of journey healing and recovering, but she has a lot of trauma from that, which she never addresses until later on. And it's really not about her healing journey. It's about her climbing. And it's hard. Like, I hate rating a memoir, because it's their story, their truth. But it just was like, I thought I was going in, it was going to be about the kidnapping and then her healing journey. And it was more about her climbing career than it was that. And it was very confusing at first. Like, it jumps right in with her coming home. And then it kind of jumps back and forth. And so, like, she's telling you these things, but you have no context for it past that she got kidnapped. And so she's telling you certain things, but you just don't have any context for it because it doesn't start with the kidnapping. And then that's the first little part of the book, is going back and forth from when they first got home and then the kidnapping. And also she was kidnapped, so she ends up marrying the one guy, who was her boyfriend at the time. And then there was 2 other people that got kidnapped with them that they were climbing with, and no mention of them at all once the kidnapping's over. And it's like, even if you didn't stay in touch, like, just say that, like, we got home, we were so relieved to be home, and we didn't stay in touch with those two people. Just mention, but at least mention them, like, because they were part of the story, because they were kidnapped with you. And so that was a little bit frustrating, and you're just kind of confused, and then it kind of evens out, and you get some more context of the kidnapping as it's jumping back and forth. And then it gets to just basically about her climbing. And yeah, and I didn't like her reasoning for stuff. Like, she was kind of making excuses instead of owning, like, her mistakes, which I didn't love. And she does, like, in the end, she, starts going to therapy. Like, she tried therapy, but it just really didn't fit for her. And so it wasn't until she ended up having a child that she started taking that seriously, and really trying to heal. But yeah, just some of her reasoning, like, it was very excuse instead of owning it. And I felt bad, really bad, for the guy that she was married to, her first husband. I felt really, really bad for him, because, like, I understand, why she ended up marrying him, but again, she's just making excuses instead of owning her mistakes in the end. And like I said, it was very heavy on the climbing, not so much on the kidnapping and the healing journey, which I get. Healing, the climbing is kind of part of her healing journey. But yeah, I thought I was getting into a memoir about her healing journey, and it was really more climbing, which, I'm not a sporty person, but I do like watching, like, rock climbers. Like, I was familiar with some of the things, and she did do a good job of explaining, oh, that's rock climber speak for this. But I watched, like, that Jason Momoa climb show. I watched that. Like, I'm familiar with the sport, but I'm not, like, sporty or hardcore into it or anything like that. Um, but yeah, it was, like I said, it's her memoir, and if you're really into rock climbing, I think you might enjoy it. But I just didn't really like her as a person, per se, like her narrative around certain choices she made. So there was that. Then the other one I did get for the Honey bingo game as well, and this was the longest book on my TBR. And this one was for my character prompt, which I got Eeyore, so it was to read either literary or dystopian, and so I went the dystopian route. And this was another one for my ABC title challenge, which was Year Zero by Jeff Long. And this one, the premise was there, the execution was not, and it was so frustrating. So basically, again, kind of confusing in the beginning. You have a lot of, like, jumps around to different characters, and you're not really introduced to them that well. And there were some extra characters that really did not need to be there. So basically, in this one, it deals with, like, biblical plague. And so you have the main character, and he kind of gets blackmailed. He's dating the niece of this guy, and he kind of ends up blackmailing him into going on, like, these different expeditions and trying to get, like, old bones and biblical relics and such. And then they sell them to different bidders, essentially. And so they're doing that, and one of the chapters, which, like I said, it could have been presented in a different way, so you knew what happened, but you randomly have this Greek and this Egyptian. I don't think they even had names. And they end up opening this thing, and it releases the plague, which basically wipes out the whole world, minus, a few survivors, and then this base camp in the United States in Los Alamos, New Mexico. So I kind of like that had, my neck of the woods, so to speak, because I do live in New Mexico. And so, and basically there's a double cross with this uncle, and he double crosses the guy. So he ends up getting imprisoned in Tibet or somewhere. And there's these Neanderthal bones. And so anyway, he ends up going on a journey because he has a daughter with the niece. And, she ends up remarrying and such, and then there's this plague, and he's on the other side of the world, and so he has to kind of travel back. And then he ends up at this base camp, which does like clones. And so they're cloning people to test on. And so you have like the scientific morality question, but there's just extra characters that did not need to be introduced. There's a relationship, like a romantic relationship, that just kind of ruined the story. It kind of gave me the ick a little bit, and it just kind of ruined the story. Like, it again was unnecessary. And you're waiting for something to happen, and any big thing that happened was just like over like that. Like, there's no development there, and so it wasn't very impactful. And so yeah, I didn't love it. And then something happens to our main male character, and like it just never really wrapped that up and tied it off. Like, you think you know what happened, but it just like it never really wrapped that up. And so that was a little bit frustrating. Um and it never really wraps up the story as well. Like, kind of where it ended, it's like, okay, like, so these people are still gonna try to do the plague. I don't want to spoil it, but still gonna try to figure out maybe a cure for the plague. And it kind of ties back to the romantic relationship as well, and it just kind of leaves you like, okay, that's it. Like, it doesn't really wrap up. And so, like I said, I like the settings. Like, he's in Tibet and he's traveling across this plague. If this was a movie, I think I really enjoy it. It's just the writing wasn't executed very well. And so, yeah, that was that. I did like, because the biblical elements really focus on the historical facts, versus like the religion side of things, which I did enjoy as well. But yeah, it's just the execution wasn't there. Then we had one 4-star, and this was actually a rollover from October. This was my Genre-a-thon pick from October. Um, and that was Never Whistle at Night. This is edited by Shane Hawk and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr., and it's just an anthology from a bunch of different authors, indigenous authors. I thought going into this that it was going to be, Never Whistle at Night, and reading the back of it, the synopsis, I thought it was really going to be an anthology with like horror that's focused on like Native American folklore, like, skinwalkers and the Wendigo and such. And why some of them did have that, some of them were more like social commentary, and kind of creepy factors around like that, and not so much like the Native American folklore. The majority of them were probably like that, and some of them didn't have anything to do with the Native American community at all. It was just creepy, and I was just like, okay. But overall, I really did enjoy this anthology, which I'm not a huge anthology person. Like, I don't really like short stories. But I like seeing some of my favorite authors, because there are several authors I've read from before. I wouldn't say they're favorites, but I've read from before and really, really enjoyed. And then some other authors that were new to me. So I did enjoy it overall. It just wasn't quite what I was expecting going into it. And obviously, with anthologies, you're going to have some that really hit and some that really miss. And there were definitely some that were just like kind of, huh. There was only a few of those, and then others were just creepy, but not necessarily what I was looking for. And then others I absolutely loved. And there's definitely several that have stuck with me. So that was my 4-star read. Then we had 2 5-star reads, which were both children's book, both extra. I kind of added them in when I was doing my themed vlog. While I was reading Braiding Sweetgrass, there were certain parts, like little essays in that fit well with these books, and so I added them in. The first one, she was talking about how the strawberries are the heartberry, and I had this book, The First Strawberries, a Cherokee story retold by Joseph Bruchak, and pictures are by Anna Vocek. And so yeah, I was like, when I read that little chapter of Braiding Sweetgrass, I was like, this is perfect. I love the artwork in here. And this is basically this, so it was very different, like the origins story for the strawberries from Braiding Sweetgrass and the strawberries from this one, obviously different tribes. But this one is obviously the Cherokee origin story. And so you have this married couple, and she's picking flowers. Her husband comes home and is like, I'm hungry. Like, flowers won't feed me, and kind of just says harsh words. And so she gets upset and she leaves. Fine. Like, I was picking the flowers for us, and to have beauty. And she ends up leaving. And he immediately regrets the harsh words he said, so he starts trying to catch up to her, but she's just trucking and he's not catching up, and the sun takes pity, and so ends up, shining down and putting these different berries in her path, trying to slow her down. And it's not until he creates the strawberries that she actually takes a moment and is like, oh, these berries are so beautiful. Taste one, they're so sweet. I'm going to pick some for me and my husband. And then he's able to catch up. And I liked, it definitely ties into the heartberry of Braiding Sweetgrass, even though it's a different origin story for the strawberries. But yeah, art is really beautiful, and I like the story itself. So there is that one. And then the next one, I was waiting for, I got in this book, so I follow the Contoured Librarian on TikTok. Again, I'll leave that link down below. And I saw this book there, and then she also did a craft with her students, which I'll talk about as well. And so I knew this is like the Thanksgiving, so it's Kipunamuk, Weachiman's Thanksgiving story. This is told by three authors and the illustrator. So we have Danielle Greendeer, Anthony Perry, and Alexis Button. And then the illustrations are by Gary Meaches Sr. Again, the illustrations in this are absolutely stunning. And so this is the Thanksgiving story as told by the Native Americans. And like I said, the animals kind of play a part. And they're like talking, which is why it's like, I think of that as kind of magical realism, but it's the Native American story. So it is nonfiction. It's very informative, and it's, from their perspective versus the white perspective. And then the activity they were doing was making little corn cobs with the beads. And it does talk a little bit about the three sisters in this one, as it does in Braiding Sweetgrass, which is when I read this after I read the Braiding Sweetgrass part of the three sisters, the chapter with the three sisters, which is corn, squash, and beans, and how they, complement each other and play a part in the growth and helping each other grow. And then also they complement each other nutritionally as well. So really, really love this one. And like I said, the illustrations in here, I liked how the illustrations told the story themselves. Like, even without the words, like, you could see what's happening with the illustrations. Love this. This is definitely one I'm going to be reading each year. And so there's that. And then I decided for my little craft activity, so I created this one first, and I just did random beads, but I wanted to incorporate the three sisters. So with this first one I created, I ended up doing like a stalk, because the beans wrap around the corn stalk. And so I did a stalk with the beans, and then a squash down at the bottom here. So that was my little craft to go with that. And then I didn't really like how clunky that was, so I was like, well, I'll make another one, and I'll do a strand for the beans, and then a strand just for the squash, and then the others will be random. This one is kind of hard. Like, the beans stand out because it's obviously different colors, but the squash doesn't necessarily stand out as well. So I was thinking I want to make another one, and I'm going to alternate. Like, this will be the corn, obviously, representation, and then I'll just alternate between the squash colors and the bean colors. And I'll just do alternate strands of those. But this was such a fun little activity. And so yeah, I really enjoyed that. And like I said, I do want to create another corn, with doing it that different way. So those were all the books I read. So basically 4 reads, 2 partials, and 2 children's books. But I do have my top 3. So the top one, like I said, there wasn't a lot to choose from. But the top one, I went with Year Zero by Jeff Long, even though I didn't really love it. It only got 3 stars for me. I did like the premise of it. And I was kind of invested in the stories. It was just kind of execution issues. But I love the dystopian / post-apocalyptic world. Like, I really enjoy that aspect of it. I don't I haven't read a lot of books like that, but I do like watching shows and like movies with that element, and so it makes sense that I would enjoy that in books as well. I like the biblical aspect from a historical lens. Like I really enjoyed that part. I really enjoy like the scientific morality, like the questions around that, like what's okay in the name of science. Because they were creating these clones and torturing them basically. And it's like they're human, like just because you created them, like they're still human. And then the journey element, like I said, he has to journey from the other side of the world, back to try to find his daughter. So I really like the journey element. The second one I went with is Never Whistle at Night. Um, Again, I'm not a big anthology person, but this one actually, like some of them really stand out. There's one with teeth that has been living in my head. So, and this one I like the creep factor. Like, even though like there's different levels of that, like overall you got a good creep factor, and I really enjoyed that. I like the ones that did incorporate indigenous folklore. I really enjoyed those ones in particular. I like that we got the different authors, that you had, some that I was familiar with and others that I wasn't at all. And then the own voices, I like that we had an own voices anthology. So you kind of got different viewpoints around like the own voices, because obviously you have different tribes and different people and different experiences, and so they're all own voices, but you get different viewpoints within that, which I really liked. And then the last one, which it's just lower because it is a children's book, but I went with Kapunamuk. And with this one, I liked the artwork. The artwork was so good. I really liked how it, told the story itself. I loved that you had information in there, like not only, the story of Thanksgiving from the Native American lens, but also at the end, it includes actual information and facts. I love the nature aspect of it, the animals, the way they played a part. And then you have like the three sisters and such, like just that aspect of it. And again, the own voices narrative, you have three different people and plus the illustrator coming together to create the story. And you have that own voices, and it's, we grow up with the Thanksgiving story from a white lens. Like that's how I learned it in school. And so you get it from, you know, the indigenous side, the Native American side of things. So I really, really enjoyed that. And then I did haul 18 books this month. Um, and so I got some for like this one I ended up hauling because I really wanted to read it. I got some books for my January, two releases, like highly anticipated releases. And then, a book that I'm going to do a family book club. And so I needed that book. So things like I hauled books that I actually needed. And then I did end up going to the thrift store and getting a few books as well. But that was my November. Hopefully you had a better reading November than I did. Like I said, I'm happy with what I read. It just wasn't an amazing month. But I really enjoyed focusing on other things, like really cleaning the house, hosting Thanksgiving. Like I loved that I was able to do that. And so I'm not mad like that I took a little break from reading overall. But I would love to know what your favorite book from November was. If you've read any of these books, if you're interested in reading any of these books, if any of the books I didn't get to are ones that you think I definitely should prioritize, let me know down in the comments below. If you just want to let me know you're here and supporting the channel, you can always leave a rabbit or any type of animal emoji. Or since I did the Native American Thanksgiving, you can leave a turkey or a corn emoji or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.